Hello, I'm Jack Cole, and I'm here with my friend and colleague David Duvall for our second adventure in discussion. No art, no life. David, how are you this week?
I'm not bad. I mean, I've had, maybe 30 or 40 setbacks, but I try to come back to the wholeness somewhere.
Okay.
Did you read any Emerson this week?
I did.
You have any quotes today?
Well, I do, in fact. You had said in the past, in many of our discussions, that you sometimes find Emerson a bit difficult.
Yes.
And I think you're being hard on yourself. I think you could easily master him. I think maybe you just haven't logged as much time with
it's
him.
the prose style. Certain ones are harder for me.
Okay.
And people don't admit that, Jack, often. So, I wonder what's wrong with me. Maybe I have no intelligence or something.
Well, that we know not to be true. What I think is interesting about reading letters, and we mentioned a bit about letters in our first discussion, is
They're
that
so important.
they are, is that sometimes some authors will find a correspondent that draws the best letters from that person, even though that person has not left a body of work themselves, or their replies are not that significant. But for some reason, this man, Harrison Gray Otis Blake, also pulled a great set of letters from Thoreau. There's a whole set of volumes
Really?
to this Blake that Thoreau wrote. And I noticed in reading this particular letter that it fueled my reading of the week, where sometimes we find where we are thinking about something and everything we read is animated from different places.
And it must be that way. That means you're reading well.
Well, I hope so. And you had mentioned that you had found Emerson difficult, and even the editor of these letters felt that this particular phrase of Emerson to Blake, in a way, seemed to boil down to a thesis, almost the whole notion of Emerson's body of work.
This is not to William Blake.
No. This is to Harrison Gray Otis Blake,
Right.
a contemporary of Emerson, and it's dated Concord, Massachusetts, August the 1st, 1839.
Right. He was born when? 1804?
1803.
3. So the same year as Berlioz in
Yes.
France, the composer. And I'm going to interrupt a second just to say to our audience that we will, as much as possible, because I believe that you need to know dates. I'm not telling you this as an authoritarian or that you have no choice in my world to not. But I'm saying the more dates you know, the more synthesis of history you're able to have. So it's good to know that 1803 is Berlioz, and that's a whole area of French culture that is far away for our Emerson, who is also born in 1803.
Yes.
Talking about correspondences, 1804, you have George Sand, who had an amazing correspondence with Flaubert. And so sometimes you get really two greats together, and sometimes the lesser one brings out better letters. So I don't want to interrupt, but let's begin that, yes, if you want.
Not at all. And I think this passage was animated for me because you and I, David, have been talking about collective action in terms of the fashion of protest that seems to be almost fanatical to this degree.
Yes.
And I kind of indicated my resistance to that. And this seemed very animated to me. There is then no longer the opinion of the community to consider. Our thought is now the community of which you and I are all members. Man seems to me the one fact. The forms of the church and of society, the framework which he creates and casts aside day by day. The whole of duty seems to consist in purging off these accidents and obeying the aboriginal truth. I dare not say these things lightly, feel the shame of saying them at all. The simplicity of duty accuses our distracted and unholy lives. But I wish to say, at least let our theory not be slavish. Let us hope infinitely and accustom ourselves to the reflection that the true fall of man is the disesteem of man, the true redemption, self-trust. So when I read that, I'm often reminded that there may be great credit in joining a group, if I dare say a mob, to protest something that, if it stopped, may even save the world. However, that it seems to me a greater, wider inner world is surrendered in joining that collective.
Oh, to me, that's so true. You may join a mob, but you won't see me in it. It would torture me. My body would be repulsed by having to be part of the revolt of the masses.
So why do you think...
You see, the masses are your problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not who they're trying to protest against always.
Yes.
They don't know what's going on, and they never will. The problem is that all of these people who are protesting are indeed sometimes, well, they've had high school, they read a little bit, they're maybe a little worse off than they were when Jose Ortega Gasset wrote his book, The Revolt of the Masses, which is, I mean, publicly important reading for everyone, because this is where he starts understanding that you are going to, as you say, relinquish your individuality. And once you are not an individual and you're part of the mob, well, the mob will turn on you.
Why do you think public protest is so fashionable again?
Well, it's a big thing. It's very easy to do.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like Thoreau's concept of his revolt, but everyone has so many different possibilities. I was speaking once to the great pianist Alfred Brendel. I said, well, what could we do about this world? He says, nothing. Too many problems exist. There's nothing we can solve. Very little we can solve. And a protest never solves anything. I remember protests like crazy in the Vietnam War every day in New York. And I would see from my window these people with torchlights even. But I mean, what did that do? Or what does the great outpouring of candles after the 9/11 mean? I mean, you think that we're going to turn back time and that protest is going to say, oh, don't bring these great buildings down with one of your virtuoso stunts? You don't even know how to fly a plane. In other words, we're living in such a mess that the idea of protest is so meaningless, because you have to really get a box and write in each problem. You have 1 million problems to solve from overpopulation, which is very seldom discussed now and is getting worse. We're going to hit 9 billion by 2080. Now, there's just no resources or no goodwill, the great word goodwill, to make certain that the human race survives. And there's too many people everywhere, powerful people who are part of the masses. The masses are part of them too, but they're more clever. And so they're able to manipulate the big masses, and they like those protests. They like when everyone is giving their rights a nice breezy day out in the sun.
Do you think it's also possible, because it's also so fashionable to find that any kind of depressive episode that one may have, any kind of dark episode, now is thought to be something that has to be eliminated rather than used as grist for the creative soul? I told you that this week I've been working on an essay about Gordon Jenkins, and it sent me to a biography of Frank Sinatra looking for information about this particular arranger, and talking about how our reading seems to cross-reference and animate all of our reading when a certain theme is there. So I was wondering if people who turn to protest, feeling that they're addressing some external darkness, are actually avoiding addressing an internal darkness that may be of greater use if it's preserved. And lo and behold, this is what I found about the period in which I was interested in terms of Gordon Jenkins starting to work for Frank Sinatra.
Fascinating.
And this is the passage that I found. The writer Bruce Jenkins, Gordon Jenkins' son, contends that it was more than artistic restlessness that moved Frank to seek a new and more overtly emotional collaborator. Why not have time in your life to really dwell on sadness in a dark and quiet room? He writes in his book about his father, there should be no fear of crying, No harm in appreciating a brand of despair so vividly captured in words and music. That's what happened when Sinatra and my father got together. That's the sole reason Frank ever sought him out. And lo and behold, 1957 was the year in which I had interest in the essay that I'm working on about just one particular band on one particular A side of a record side, and one particular measure and with one particular moment that affected me very much in childhood. And wonderful how reading can reinforce our deepest intuitive ideas, even about emotion, almost down to a scientific accuracy.
It even lifts your hand up to start writing the essay.
It does. And this came from the second part of James Kaplan's Sinatra biography.
It's a big biography. He was a tremendous part of the American culture. Mm. You no doubt will hear him and Nelson Riddle, in his orchestrations every day. You'll see Frank Sinatra everywhere. The Moonlight Sinatra. I would say that the moment of encounter that would put you to enough energy to go to the library and get this book is already the real beginning before your unconscious desire of putting something down that has been bothering you for a long time. So,
almost 50 years.
Yes. Well, that's how the creative process works. It sometimes takes its time because it knows exactly that you are not ready for it. You're not interested enough for it, but there was enough of a little acorn there to grow the tree eventually. And it's such a complicated thing. As long as you have no desire for impressing anyone about this, you have a chance really to get it published. But if it's just something in your mind that you are using to promote yourself as a writer, as so many people are constantly promoting themselves. I'm a musician who taught concert pianist quality for 33 years at Juilliard, and every one of them you could tell how good they will play or not, because the ones that love the music do it for itself, but the ones that don't love the music or the process or the great composer they're working on, they will, what can you say? They just want to show themselves off in that piece. And the hunger to perform is almost like a dirty word today. You have a president that performs every hour, every minute of his life. You have everyone on television performing desperately because they've heard that, wow, real recognition comes from television. Now, if you need any of this, really, stay away from any of it, because I'm not on this YouTube because I really need any affirmation of myself. I know my faults very well. So, I mean, you want to criticize me? Please don't. I can do it myself. I don't want any criticism. That's too easy. I never criticize anyone unless it's certainly not in front of them. So if you want, as I do, as you do, your ideas to possibly stimulate others, there's the purity in that makes it work. I want someone to like read this to me, this Gounod letter that I will read, because yes, I'm a musician and I wrote a book called The Essential Canon of Classical Music, and I can't believe it's been in print for our Strauss since 2001. Came out a month after or before the Twin Towers went, and there was no publicity for it, and I never thought that it would stay in print for 25 years, and it has. And I get royalties, so small that it wouldn't get me, a good sushi dinner, but I'm happy that this book was 7 or 8 years of work, and that I'm very happy that it exists. But I didn't write it really for any specific person. I certainly am always in the aura of the wanting to be a missionary for art, the title of our series, Jack, as you know very well, is No Art, No Life. And there is, I'm afraid, no art, no life.
How do you distinguish the missionary from the person that you feel is performing for self-service?
Yeah, well, the missionary is also a priest of any religions that wants to get into your head, even though you've already been conditioned by another religion, and that is enough for you. You come into the world as just Jack Cole. What if your parents are Catholic, you become Jack Cole the Catholic. And unless those parents have worked through that mighty rock inside that they put in there with all of these incredible beliefs, then you will continue. And if you have children, you're going to not raise them as Zen Buddhists or Buddha. You're going to not Hindus. They have their own destiny. And it's a shame because every belief will go against you sometime, somewhere. Belief is our biggest problem, not faith. Faith isn't good. As the great Verdi said, faith is good. A great lapsed Catholic that he was, and a senator in the first Italian Senate. He said, faith is good, but no faith is better. No faith, no beliefs. One belief that you have, and I differ with, I will, if it's a big enough one, I'll be set at war with you in one way or another.
How does that stop one from stasis if one has no convictions?
No, you have convictions via beauty, be it probably the one of the few things that is genetically programmed is the desire for the human being to be an artist of some kind, not to build forts or destroy, but to create something that you yourself liked doing. If it's a mechanical project, if it's a puzzle, all these little minor things count because we do have one thing to do. How do we serve the hours given us in life? So if you like to practice the piano, well, that's what I do. That's what you do. You're a wonderful pianist. No, nothing less than the Ives Sonata is his meat. Well, you go to the piano and you find out that if you started at 6 years old and you're still doing it at 50 years old, my God, it must have had a hold on you, and you wasted your time very admirably. If you want to think of it as, I'm wasting my time. For everything is one thing, the use of time.
Yes.
So if you're going to use your time in protest, of which when you leave, by the way, going back to your first statement with you will go home feeling very depressed.
Yes.
Yes, that's one of the hallmarks of protest, because nothing can really get done there. You know, you may be hit in the head, of course.
Right.
Which wouldn't be fun.
And does this trace back to Gounod?
Well, all things to me that have any war, any kind of violence, we all have violence in us because we react to what we see in the world. It's so awful. I mean, how many wars can you have? Every administration is filled with wars, started or that they have no choice but to go into. If you have a war, you are going to kill someone. And doesn't that go against the main issue and the main tenet of all religions, or at least Christianity? Doesn't it say, or Judaism, doesn't it say, thou shalt not kill? I cannot, in good faith, kill an insect. 2-3 years ago in the summer, there was some of the most beautiful insects outside. Everyone hated them. And they were eating all the leaves, and I understood that. And I was up in the top of my building, and I see all of them. And I looked at them. I said, my God, it comes every 3 or 4 years or 10 years. I don't know. It was the most beautiful insect in the world. How could anyone kill it?
Mm.
You see, I didn't think of the insect and eating it. He had to eat, but I thought of its beauty.
Mm.
What a coating, what a color, what 3 or 4 colors. This is what is really based in us, in the great genetic system, or we would not have had the first professional artists, which were the cave dwellers, and we certainly know how wonderful they are. We have had reproductions of these fantastic animals, especially, but other much more. There are very many objects and people and animals. And well, what happened? The other people who also had this genetic thing in them that never had the actual opportunity or wasn't big enough said, "Oh my goodness, this is so good. This is so beautiful." To see the luminosity of the colors that they created that still exist. How that happened, I don't know. But here they are. And people are saying you don't have to go out and hunt and gather food. We do that. You just stay in here with your friends who can do it with you and do the buffaloes and do the other animals and objects.
You don't suspect that perhaps the greatest of the cave painters was also the person engaged in gathering the gold currency of the buffalo by hunting it himself?
He didn't have yet any estrangement from the fact of hunting.
Mm.
He knew from the beginning that was the way that he had to have his food. But as he became aware, and we haven't yet become aware, look at all the people duck hunting and celebrities going out and hitting lions, the king of beasts. I just did a lion because I was watching the documentaries. So everything, of course, is I'm saying I was haunted by lions in 3 or 4 dreams, and the next day all the people that I saw were like lions. They were moving the way lions did, and all of a sudden I said, I've got to do a lion, and it was in my face, and this lion with red hair, it doesn't have to be thought of as a lion. To me, it came out of the days that I was watching documentaries on lions, because I've always loved cats. These felines are designed to enchant you. And the lion here is, are we getting that at all?
Yes, you may hold it
this
closer.
lion is a man, possibly, and it's a painting that is 12 by 9 or something, but haunts me. And the more you look at it, the more you get a little hallucination from it. And you watch those lions, and they never bore you. And every time it kills another animal, you wince so much, even though we know that was the law that of carnivores, they have to do that. It's still stepping on the insect. Every bullet takes away our lives. Stepping on the insect. The poor jungle leopard, the serval, magnificent. I was watching a wonderful documentary on the magnificent ocelot in Peru. So,
but can we ever really escape that? If there's the notion, the Platonic notion on the other side, so to speak, of creation, the world that we can't see, of the total good, and we live on this side, is there any way to fully escape tramping on parts of creation?
no.
And so should we necessarily feel guilty? I don't mean that we go and pull the wings off of butterflies, but at the same time, you and I go to the diner.
I eat meat all the time.
Yeah.
I was conditioned to eat meat. I'm a very different man than Hitler, who was a vegetarian, or Wagner, who was a vegetarian. And I hope that when the people see these YouTube things that we're doing, I hope that they understand one of the things that we would like very much to do, which we did not get in our own educations enough. We had to self-teach ourselves.
Mm.
So I will always bring up something that will be part of it, or a different quote, or a different piece of knowledge, or a new letter, something that may stimulate you. It does not mean that you have to like that specific thing, and certainly means you never have to agree with me, of course. I don't want any disciples at all.
Mm-hmm.
They really ruin your life.
Well, you remind me of Emerson again. He has the phrase that one is weaker for every recruit to one's banner.
Oh boy, that's good. That is good.
Mm-hmm.
But you see, those are things you have to think about.
Yes.
Boy, and yeah, Emerson, I think is a man of such substance that I'm a little afraid of him, because he takes you into himself in such a complete way. He's the greatest American philosopher.
I think so, even without having founded a school of philosophy. He certainly doesn't have a closed system.
Right. Oh no. No.
It's ultimately debatable whether it isn't still more literature than philosophy. And yet,
yes, it is, of course.
at the same time, I never feel disappointed philosophically from him, where I feel disappointed in my efforts to tackle real, true, bona fide philosophy.
Oh yes. I mean, how can you read that Kant stuff? How can you read? I mean,
I have made my
even,
own.
Even Plato, of course. Emerson loved Plato very much.
Mm.
That's the great book for him, but I have no idea what the thing is about, and I can't really trust the fact that was in any language that has any meaning to us right now.
I understand that.
It's very difficult to go back to the ancient Greeks, and that's why they're so romantic for us. Their best work is their sculpture.
Mm.
Their sculpture is not to be believed. If you are in Munich, you can go to their museum, which has some of the greatest collection, and you look at that and you just can't believe it. All Renaissance stuff, from even Michelangelo's David, as we had once talked. These are just pastiches of Greek world, and there's this great sadness in their faces.
Mm.
And let's say Bernini, that's the moment in time that the Renaissance started saying, boy, everything in the world is for us. We can copy the Bernini, the David, the David by Donatello is incredible, better than the actual big David.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, we have great opinions. I like my opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Do I change them? Baudelaire said you have a right to change your opinion every day. And he said something else even more important. If you're bored, you should leave. So anyway, what have you been doing this week beside your essay?
I've been working on pieces for a composer named Michael Kosch, I believe is the way one pronounces it, a Kosch.
Yes, he came to a New Criterion event where, with Cecile Lacotte, I did a show on Chopin Preludes.
That's where I met him.
Yes, that's where you met him. You came, and at the Players Club.
Yes, in October.
It was a very nice time, and I also met a man that I had remembered fondly, who was the friend of a man, and you know the name better, Ellis. What's his first name?
Edward Robb Ellis?
Yes. We'll talk about him in a second. Why not? We
Yes.
have anything we can talk about, and we don't have any problems in talking.
Mm-hmm.
So he came up to me, very pleasant. He said that, he's a composer and his wife is a choreographer, Rachel.
Oh, Michael Kosch, you mean? Or
Michael Koch, yes.
Uh-huh.
And he asked if I could, on my radio show, maybe perhaps, or I told him I would. He didn't ask. I said and I haven't yet.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm finding out you're learning some of his piano pieces, Jack.
Yes, they're called Semblance of Memling, as in the artist.
Oh, Memling, the great. Oh, is he great?
Yes, and so they're very admirable pieces, and I'm working right now just to put fingerings in them and give them their due.
When you're ready to play, next semester especially, the Michael Koch pieces, you'll do them in my class, as you have played other times.
It's a pleasure.
My class is a very interesting class that many people would I think like if they knew about it, and it's called Piano Evenings, Com. You can find out where it is. Every single Tuesday, some of the wonderful pianists of New York or wherever, London, come and they play. 3 pianists will play. I will talk about the music. We have a wonderful audience. We have a magnificent Grotian Steinweg, a piano that was given to the series. So it's called Evenings with David Duvall, right? Yeah. Piano Evenings with David Duvall, but pianoevenings.com. And we do need some more people, that's for sure.
In your audience?
In the audience,
yes.
Because I mean, they're very old. That's one of the things that we have to be careful of, that everyone that loves serious music, art music, or as Coppola called it, concert music.
Why did he make that distinction?
Well, he didn't like anything, and as I don't like it, you can't call music classical music.
But why the distinction between concert music versus art music?
Well, no, he didn't. It would be too pretentious for him.
Okay.
I mean, 99% of classical music, so-called, is certainly not art music. It's just, using the forms, and it doesn't have any chance of living almost. There's maybe has there been one piano concerto since the third Bartok? Or maybe for a while Hinosterra's number one? No. It's tough to survive in the arts, and it's tougher when you have no audience, and it's tougher when the young pianists who should be looking at modernity have no interest in it because they've been playing the same stuff over and over again until it's ground threadbare. Now, these are wonderful masterpieces, the Appassionata and Beethoven sonatas, but they can become boring because they're played so well. They're played by people who want to show themselves off.
And that's where we began.
Yeah.
And in your history as a pianist and as someone who's listened to so many pianists, what do you think are some of the factors that could stop someone early on who has great facility, but you detect that they are using it for self-serving purposes over the long-run potential of a person who is using it to display the eternal value in those things? Can you detect that?
Oh, yeah.
What,
yes.
What are the giveaways?
The giveaway is the constant imitation of pianists that they like. They go to records, they listen, they all have good ears, and all of a sudden you have these records feeding reproduction of the live person working on it, and they work on it, and they, I'm bored with that record, and they have another one. They go to another old master. Those old masters are your source of 3 generations of imitation. Terrible, it's terrible. Now, that does not mean that they're not marvelous, like Andrew Tyson, and people that I have known in my teaching that are fantastic pianists. One Australian, Benjamin Martin, and really, we're talking about hundreds upon hundreds, so there are many, many good artists, and when they are, you start feeling truly sorry for them, for where are they going to play?
Yes.
I mean, what are we producing? I mean, it's the truth. The horse culture died in the 1890s, yet we have more horses in the world today than ever before. More pianists, more everything. Very difficult because it can only produce what I call the 3 levels of mediocrity. There's the low mediocrity, where everyone almost sits. They play, they this, they that, oh God, I go to competitions, oh, they make their parents poor. I have no care for, I want to do all the Beethoven sonatas too, just like so-and-so, Richard Good or Rao and so forth. These are important interpreters.
Okay.
It's not very important to be an interpreter, really. You have to have imagination. You have to have the desire to practice well. Rachmaninoff is a great interpreter of any piece. Small, large, the Carnival. Nobody has ever played anything as well as he does within certain moments in the piece, let's say. Not always, every piece. but the real problem is that that he can't be imitated, and when they try, it's a travesty. It just stops them in their tracks. They don't understand that these people are coming from a great tradition, and they are creating that another tradition. Stephen Kovacevic, the great pianist who studied with Myra Hess, I like the curvatures of who was with whom and so forth. He knew that he could never go to a conservatory; it would kill him. So he never went to, as they call it, college.
Okay.
And he became a very great pianist through the savagery of his work, how hard he worked. He studied with Myra Hess and got much from her in the classical way, and became a fine musician who knew acoustics and understood that Chopin played in a dry hall, loses a great deal. Things that people don't think about who are just trying to show off their fingers. And by the way, there are 2 or 3 people today that they have fingers that are so fast, so even that they're actually repulsive musically.
I understand what you mean. Now, here's a question I have. If Rachmaninoff could be among the living again now, almost a century more or less since his passing, have these masterworks been played so much that the latitude is now so small that even a Rachmaninoff would not find latitude in which to put a new stamp, even on top of his unique interpretations? Would he only be left to have to move forward as a composer? I mean, does work that we have to interpret as an art, meaning interpretive art, recreative art, eventually lose its currency because so many people have recreated it that the alternatives have narrowed down?
You said it all. That's the problem. So many people have interpreted the Beethoven Pathetique that to hear it even by a good pianist, you don't want to hear it because it's already threadbare.
But do we ask our figurative grandmama to patch the threadbare work anyway? Because I can't imagine a world without the Pathetique.
No, I can't imagine it either. It has to be in the world of the musician who makes certain that he doesn't hear it much.
I understand.
It's oversaturated. Not all Chopin. I had someone in my class, marvelous player, so boring that I would have liked to have killed him if I could. I mean, here's a man playing all of these pieces note perfectly. Not one soaring moment, not one true caress, nothing, and yet played so well and following the actual markings and so forth. Please rest him for, if you do have any talent. It's very unlikely that they have the great talent that they were able to sit for hours and they have wonderful reflexes, they could have perfect pitch, but they will never be artists. It has no meaning, their work. They should give it up and go try to build a city in Montana. We haven't had a city built in years. I'd like to see a wonderful woodland park and some very livable and interesting homes. God, the architecture, my heart quells. It's so awful. And you see it in Spain, an American made that apartment building, or you see it anywhere. It's like the Americanization of nothingness everywhere, imitations. I would rather them do the imitation of the great domes from Italy than to have what we get for our eye. We don't understand. It's so terrible to see bad things, and we're such a visual culture. I think we must start experimenting. No more television. Got to be no more television. The commercials alone, a child has millions by the time they're 5. Their eyes are never fresh. They can never become connoisseurs of painters.
Mm.
They don't have parents that are painters.
Mm-hmm.
How could you possibly fall in love with the art I call the art that sees?
Mm.
You have to go right now and say no more commercials, no more silly smiles, no more fake colors, and go to the Met and take 2 pictures a day. For every one has a meaning to me. Why
Mhm.
are they there? The Met is not a fool.
Mm.
The David huge portrait of Lavoisier and his wife, the founder of Oxygen, and they beheaded him. You see,
Mm.
we found out what democracy can do to the talented, and the talented have nowhere to go in a society where an aristocrat has no place because he's a political concept. He's an aristocrat.
You mean someone who has the pretensions or the sincere right to be elevated over someone else?
Yes. This egalitarian nightmare, everyone being alike, and protests and running around with causes. Each cause is ridiculous, and they're getting more and more stupid.
Well, if I may backtrack for a moment, you said something that fascinates me. You mentioned a pianist who played with such facility, almost perfection, of Chopin.
Mm-hmm.
And yet that person certainly had the discipline, a kind of stick-to-itiveness to get to a almost fanatical level of achievement. What stops that person from saving themselves from that? They must realize, because now the writing is on the wall for so many pianists.
They have no colleagues that are artists. When I went to Juilliard, we were all having coffee all day long, not practicing so much as to talk about how Horowitz played, how we had a course in the visual arts even, which they don't have, I think, in many places any longer. Certainly not in actual drawing. That language is gone. Nobody I know draws. I've said on my radio programs every day, it would be a great thing, 4 minutes of a Scarlatti sonata, get a pad of paper and a nice pencil, study a master drawing, study it, take 10 minutes and watch what he was doing. You're not going to try to copy it, you're just trying to find some essences and see what the guy is working in linearity, he's working in bulk. Why don't you try, it's a little hard, but why don't you try Botticelli? It's the greatest single Florentine drawing of all. If and there's millions very close to it in quality. But this is of a genius so transcendental. Well, you can copy it and you will see what a ridiculous copy you've just made. But if you do 100 copies, if your eye is hungry, and if you start understanding that your hand is a remarkable mechanism, remember you are drawing not with 2 hands, but with 1 and with 2 eyes. These eyes are guiding you. Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, you just can't believe it. Can you get that ear? You're not trying to get that ear. You're trying to get something that looks like it. You go slowly, leave it alone for a year. One of our problems is that everything has to be instant. You've got to become a great copyist within 4 days, We cannot wait. Now, what I do admire about all these people I'm putting down, so to speak, these people that are playing so wonderfully, well, they want to be good craftsmen at least. That's all that's left for them.
Or could this be connected perversely and tragically with where we began in terms of the protest collective movement? That in a way they hone something that has already canonically been approved as virtuous, but in a way they betray themselves. Even though they spend thousands and thousands of hours in solitude in a room, they have not spent thousands and thousands of hours in the solitude of the geometry of their own heart. That's what puzzles me about the ostensible virtue, even of the trade that I picked, that I got a lot of praise for it, but at a certain point I knew that there was something that wasn't going to be representative of however feeble it might have been, or could be, my own personal mark. And certainly that was the case for you. I came to you through your books on music, only to discover this principal body of work that you have in the plastic arts. So that must
You came to me through the radio too.
through the radio, yes, which was also representative of your musical stuff, principally. But I also sensed a kind of grand generalist there that made me reach out to you.
Generalist, yes. I'm not a believer in specialization. That you'll find within the great protest movements. Oh, so many specialists. That's what we do.
Yes.
We specialize on 3 pieces, 1 composer. I'm not into this idea of one Bach player. Yeah, Bach is God. Bach is the greatest thing we've ever had in the world, greatest consciousness along with Beethoven. But I'm not interested in a musician playing from his point of view only Bach. I'm not interested in not being on radio. I'm very interested and passionately talking to whoever's going to listen, hopefully. We get together often for no other reason but, and you come on a train, so we can talk. We need to be hungry to talk, and we have to. So these piano players, they're not pianists. I wanted to go back to what I said about I call it the 3 levels of mediocrity. The 3rd lowest level is the protesters. They're out there in abundance. They can be moved by anyone who tells them a world problem or some sort of, if you don't have the proper bathroom, you can protest. It's so ridiculous.
Yes,
all of it is so ridiculous. What were you born for? To do such things? Walk on the street with your fellow masked man? You must be alone as much as possible to go into the depths of your being. And you have to see that we are destroying ourselves. Absolutely. There's no other way of saying it. And there's, we don't know how much time, but it's not going to be that much. So we have to, as Krishnamurti said, put our hate over here and leave it alone and never think about it again. You cannot allow yourself to hate. Middle mediocrity.
Oh yes,
Okay,
next
middle
level.
mediocrity. Oh, there's thousands of good, mediocre technicians, scientists, people that go to work every day, click this machine all day long. I would destroy that machine as soon as I saw it because it doesn't like me. Why would it like me? It has to capture me. And that's the huge amount of nice mediocrity. They come home, they have a sense maybe they've learned even how to taste good wine. I know nothing about wine. Why would I spend my time? It is very, very rarefied, and it seems a little bit. Give me some mango juice. So we fuss around with being so mediocre, but we're going to put one little thing in our world that says, "Oh, we're connoisseurs." Well, do it with art, baby. Do it,
Yes.
because without art.
So why do people avoid connoisseurship in the only place that it matters?
Yeah, because it really matters. Because they don't know how to react to it. They don't have any guidance with it. They have blocked the aesthetic heritage, which I believe is in every human. Some gene in here says, those cave men were your first professionals. They were paid by not having to go hunt and become, possible prey. And what can I say? What was the question exactly for their?
Well, I was just asking why it is now. I've lost the train of thought.
Very easy when there's a camera on you to go. That's one of the hardships I've known all my life.
Oh no, I remember what we were saying. Why is it that in the only area where connoisseurship matters, that people will be connoisseurs of things that are actually common?
Well, they want to drink it.
Yes.
They want to materialize it. You don't look at this magnificent painting of Venice that I did. I mean, I consider it magnificent. Jeff Spurgeon at QXR wanted to buy it. I was very proud of that
Mm-hmm.
when it was in a show, things
Mhm.
like that. I said, no, I always have it right there. I'm poor. I really need to sell it, but it's just I'm used to it there.
Mm.
So the difficulty they want to materialize everything. Wine is a nice little minor art. If you were rich, and it's all with rich, it's all with fashionable, it's all, who knows if their tastes, which are different than mine, really can tell something different and making that specific wine so wonderful that I would die to have it. No, but I wouldn't die to have it.
Right.
I would have it and I would know instantly that it was good or
Mhm.
bad, but it would not have tremendous gradations, or I would not. I mean, it's so. You go in a restaurant and you see these people. The poor waiter's just waiting. The poor waiter they never look at the waiter at all.
Well, these tremendous false connoisseurships seem to plague the people who have the most time and the most means, perhaps, to address where the real crisis is. And it seems to me the first things I always encounter, and it makes my heart sink to the floor, that the two principal connoisseurships that are outrageous, one is the wine culture, and the next is travel. The obsession.
Oh, read Huxley's essay on travel, and you won't go anywhere.
Well, I felt that as a child, and then when I found Emerson's phrase, travel is a fool's paradise, I could never get past that reinforcement. So why, again, does everybody avoid the reformation that goes on within, only to think that that reformation may mean something to their fellow unreformed person if they went to Italy for a week?
What do you think going to Italy is going to change them or transform?
Oh, I know it does not.
If they see the Leaning Tower of Pisa, you've seen it in movies your whole life.
Yes.
Oh, you don't need to see it, and it's I would like to have it fall, so I could see what the press of the world would do about that.
Mm.
Whoa, what does that mean? I mean, you want to see the Arno? Look at the Hudson. It's right here on the top of this building,
Mm-hmm.
right down there. And this kind of travel is a huge escape.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have work to do, if you're a writer, if you're a painter, if you're a pianist, if you're a broadcaster, you have to get a weekly show up, or you have to be here to do a weekly
Mm-hmm.
YouTube. You have to practice every day. You can't go gallivanting around the world, getting dust in your nostrils. So
Mm-hmm.
you could make travel agents or jet planes, which are destroying the world.
Mm-hmm.
You realize in 1903, these guys went up for 7 seconds at Kitty Hawk, right?
Right, yes.
What were their names?
The Wright brothers.
Wright brothers, of course. They were not right. I would have said, please destroy that thing right now.
Mm.
Why? You know how many millions of people have been killed by the airplane? It's a terrorist instrument, and you know what I think of what happened to the world at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was over.
Mm.
We can't go on unless we ban the bomb.
Well, do you think it's, again, the passive, just like people who abuse the piano literature? That
They don't even know the piano literature.
Right, that in a sense the people who fly now are abusing the art of what the Wright brothers achieved. That it was fine when they achieved the notion of defying gravity, but once people used it passively to escape from their own inner considerations, it becomes an abomination, like a bomb. I remember reading Glenn Gould had the remark that he would never belong to any kind of anti-nuclear proliferation society until there was also a society for the prevention of little boys pulling the butterfly's wings off of the butterfly.
Yes, he would. He was with Isaac Stern having dinner, and he's in a restaurant, and they saw they were boiling lobsters.
Mm.
He left he left the restaurant.
Well, I guess what I'm talking about is matters of scale.
Yeah.
That what Thoreau always remarks is that every moment is startlingly moral. And that the protest, the notion of the collective is to look at things that seem to be world-shattering. But the most world-shattering thing that we can do to stop the shattering of worlds is to reform the world that's on the brink within. And that seems to be only the role of the artist. And no matter how many robots we create, that the work of the human hand is the only thing that would save us in the end.
Mhm.
So, what do we tell the audience of today might be their refuge if they don't
My
feel
God,
that?
you think we have something to tell them that would be important?
Well, I don't presume to feel that I'm the messenger or that I have the answer, but I would imagine that perhaps that someone might reply to what we're saying is, what if I don't have an artist's means within?
Mhm.
What do we advise?
I would start developing that means, because I really am an extremist in the sense there really is not much to do that is not so monotonous. As Isaac Bashevis Singer said, most people die of monotony.
Mm.
I mean, why are they doing that? Why don't they start playing the piano? Marguerite Yourcenar said, gosh, one hand for 1 year on a Bach convention, next year Bach convention, left hand, and then take another year to try to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what an accomplishment. What, are you always thinking of being Einstein? That's another problem.
Mm.
You always got to be great.
Mm.
That is great. That is
Mm-hmm.
a great accomplishment. And if it took 3 years, great. It could take 5 years, so what?
Mm.
This is a culture that must be instant. So we have the big mediocrity in the middle, and I mean, they are the revolt of the mass. They're college educated. Remember, no longer are we talking about poor.
Mm-hmm.
The poor don't exist in this society. This is a game saying, the poor are all over the world, but not in the United States. I don't care, what color you are or whatever. You will not starve. I have no money coming in, but I will not starve, I am sure.
I understand.
So then we have the high mediocrity, high, middle, and low.
Mm-hmm.
Now these people have the artistic soul. They didn't have maybe the discipline to bring the technique up to where it has to be to play in public.
Mm-hmm.
Because very wonderful thing is to play in public. You don't want just to tittle for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't find out anything about your big animal in you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't take it to the public,
Mm-hmm.
learn it from memory, learn it anyway, play it for everyone. If nobody likes the Ives Sonata, they are a fool, and you do it again to them and again. And my God, you see, if they have anything in them, there's no way that they won't admire that in 17 hearings or 30.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing? You're watching television, you're piddling on this horrifying thing. Yesterday there was a series that the iPhone was on it, I counted it. In 6 episodes, it was there 1,900 times, the cell phone in the movie.
So you
I
saw
was
a
crazy
film-
to do that.
So
but
you saw a film in which you could count the presence of the phone more than 1,000
free
times.
commercials for this
Yeah.
for this dangerous item,
Mm.
which has made addictions, in China, they're all in hospitals trying to get out of the addiction.
Mm.
I see it on the street.
Mhm.
There's no romance. So how could you have romantic men who are walking around? They're dragging their child even, they're walking around. This is all they're doing. I'm amazed. Why don't they put their virtuosity into music? Look at how they go on the...
Yes.
And of course, not one thing that they ever sent a message to me had any meaning. And I get a lot of messages.
Yes, and it puzzles me that we talk about letter writing and the whole epistolary art, and yet everyone seems to have joined the process of exchanging ideas in print.
Well, the fashionable is much bigger than one thinks.
Mm.
The imitation, look at these goddamn tattoos that
Mm-hmm.
I may be condemned for right now by saying it, but I want to tell you, why would anyone do that to the body? Why don't you get a piece of paper and draw something?
Well, if
Why would they do that to the draw? Not to mention that they're so perverse.
Yes.
And every critic of them have to be careful because they have been condescended to by the media.
Mm-hmm.
Documentaries, they're artists.
Mm-hmm.
This sacred word, you know how I think of that word, artists.
Mm-hmm.
That's sacred.
The tattoo always astonishes me because I think as a writer that I always would like to reserve the right of revision. And And it astonishes me that anyone could feel that committed to a medium that they carry around with themselves.
That was paying to do it.
Correct. So I don't think we're talking, when we speak of tattoos, of anything that goes back to a Polynesian prehistory. We're talking about, again, a collective swarm that has moved to an ostensible expression that is no such thing.
A new art form, huh? What a joke.
Yeah.
And all of this within 20 years. Yes, people had tattoos in Moby Dick, and people had tattoos in primitives. They used to call them savages.
Right.
They're not savages. Nobody's a savage. Everyone is product of their environment. That's all. And what are we going to do about these tattoos? Ruining we're going to see some beautiful legs soon.
Mm-hmm.
And here is the curve and all. She's just ruined that she's got a big tattoo in the middle of a Indian chief, or a horrifying religious symbol, or a devil. And then, of course, there are the people who are mad,
yes,
who have every single piece of their skin done. Are they so lacking in individuality that they can't do it, or can't be alone to read a book? This is number one. You've got to start reading the books, the great classics. You cannot become, in my opinion, cannot have an interesting life without reading.
Agreed.
It's so deep. I understand when you come to America and you are from, Malaysia or something, and you do your best, and reading is not going to always be easy for you. But, this is a great, great literature.
Mm-hmm.
Just as the piano literature is the greatest literature of all time, even better than poetry, which is immense, English poetry. I don't read much translation because I always feel an awkwardness. Or is that but I do love to read English poetry. I don't have a good, easy time of it. But when I can focus, because it will give you that aesthetic ecstasy, which I'm afraid a tattoo isn't going to do. I don't understand this tattoo. I thought maybe it was cute on Popeye the Sailor Man, a little anchor.
Well, even there's some kind of precedent of gold currency drawn from nature. We imagine that Popeye, though he's a cartoon and a fabled character, is of some tradition in which it doesn't reflect any notion of expression so much as a sign of service. We can imagine, almost like a badge.
Yes, he's like a...
But now I do not know, except, as you say, to cover piece by piece, patch by patch, what individuality the mob has left until one is covered almost in purple blotches. And what seems obscene is I grew up in a culture where I knew everyone lived in horror if they had varicose veins, and it was the notion that we wanted to disguise such things, only to add stolen expressions. As you say, usually it's never anything original. It's never a text of beauty that one has labored to compose, in which case that's the worst distributive place to put it, only on one's arm.
Or a quote, oh God, or a biblical passage, or anything.
And again, no chance to revise it.
You just, especially if I want to be a connoisseur of anything, I want to be a connoisseur of female beauty.
Yes.
That's the greatest thing ever gifted to us. Where are they? They have just shriveled, and now they're tattooed. I can't stand when I could see a magnificent leg. I'm not now just talking sexual, that I would draw, would I draw a devil on it, on the magnificent length of the thigh? It's fantastic what we are doing, and these people are part of what we call the revolt of the mass. They are revolting,
yes,
but there's nothing to revolt anymore because they're accepted, and nobody dares in a politically correct society ever to say, why did you do that to yourself?
Am I right, David? When one goes to the best galleries, the best museums, the glass that is in a frame is called museum glass, that It's a kind of glass that is of a certain quality that does not have reflections.
Right.
So I can only imagine, and I'm going to risk, again, also remarking on trying to survey female beauty, not even just from a sexual or a prurient point of view, but to admire what I think is the better half of creation, just simply as a work of walking bipedal art. It's as if the terror of creation, which brings us into the world of museum glass, is suddenly a terror for the individual. And so the tattoo, the affectation of the mob, is to put scratches, almost on purpose, in front of a glorious work. Baffles me every time. And I see it like you do. I used to think of coming into the city as a chance to go into the gallery of beauty. Now, for the most part, almost all of the framed works are covered by scratches, self-inflicted.
Hurts. It hurts.
Yeah.
You see, they hate us. They hate art. They understand it's a transformative thing that could help everyone. That is also, we do know truths in our unconscious. We dream them, but we don't allow them to come out any longer because we don't think there's anything out here for us except Burger King or Wendy's or this unbelievable meat eating that never ceases to. You know, why would they get a steak? Do they know that a steak would be a better thing than a McDonald's or something like that? Okay, I would like you very much. I'm offering a challenge to the Wendy company, the Burger King company, and the what is it called, McDonald's, and I would like them to make me the CEO of these great foodie companies, and I would now be in control of billions of dollars. It's my new thing that I tell people, and I think I would have the energy to do it because it's so wonderful. Mr. Elon Musk, Burger King, or all of these billion-dollar things, I would like to have your money, and I would like to use it to build the musical career back, to build homes of culture, to have museums in the many areas that we could use this land instead of putting another petrifying building. Let an architect make a beautiful, and put only my paintings in, there's over 1,000, or put your paintings, or I will be able to create, I'll have, well, why doesn't schools do this? Why do you go to a music school and then graduate and then they say goodbye forever? You can't even get in there again to the library, and then what happens is nothing. They haven't even gotten you a concert, but they charge you $60,000, $70,000 a year to go to these conservatories everywhere.
What do you make of the precedent that has fallen to the wayside? We used to have a culture where great affluence would oftentimes lead to the very thing you're calling for. Like, let's take an Andrew Carnegie. Why do you feel that that kind of type hasn't manifested itself again?
Well, because there's no tradition of culture. There was the reading. There was schools that ranked it high. There were music courses. Now there's just computers. That's not education. You can only get education from teachers who are good and are paid properly. So I will build a musical career with violinists, and I'll get orchestras, and instead of, I wrote an article called The Requiem for an Orchestra. Did you ever read that?
I have not.
It was in the San Jose Mercury News. Supposed to be a great paper. Got a lot of, feedback. I'm sick of that feedback. I don't want anyone feeding. I want them to read it. That's my opinion. I don't need yours. I never read criticism. As Lord Byron said to John Murray, his publisher, in 1835, please, no more reviews. I'm too old to read those. He was 34, So I would like all of these corporations. I mean, I'm a radical. I would get rid of every automobile if we're going to, Think of it.
Mhm.
In 1915, Edison and Ford colluded to keep the oil when Edison was on his way to creating the what do you call it, the electric car.
Mm.
Well, that's 1 century and 10 years.
Mhm.
110 years we could have had an Earth still
Mm.
if we had but why would you want to go in an automobile and not travel? You go on a highway?
Mm.
Where are you going? You're talking about travel? Do you ever go this endless highway?
Mm.
You go out of your mind just seeing this trees, a few on the side, that's it. There used to be Howard Johnson's, now they have huge malls
Yes.
with all this horrible food. You get out, you're bloated.
So now, before we part today,
Now, you think I don't love life more than anyone?
I understand that. Before we part today, is there part of the Gounod that you want to
Oh
leave
yeah,
us with?
so we're going to part now, and I hope that you come back next week because we are going to do it every week. And this is just this is a wonderful anthology of letters of composers by Norman and Schrift or something. It doesn't matter, you can find it. All these letters are fabulous. Who is Gounod? Of course, he's known now as composer of Faust.
Mm.
He wrote so much. He was highly prolific. Many operas, Sappho, Romeo and Juliet, many others. He wrote 150 piano pieces. Think of it.
Mm.
And the only one that's known, and it always hurt me that he didn't get credit, was the Alfred Hitchcock Hour used his piece
Oh,
called The Funeral March of the Marionette.
that's Gounod?
That's Gounod.
All right.
Can you sing it?
I know the tune. I'm not going to dare to
Okay.
sing it, but I know the exact tune you mean.
So Gounod was born in Paris in 1818. And by the way, if you were going to be born anywhere in the world in 1818, Paris was the place.
Mm.
And he dies in 1893. And he's writing to someone, and it happens to be 1870. And of course, all of you do know that 1870 is the Franco-Prussian War, which is the prelude to the great fugues of the World War I and II. It didn't just happen. It was always sputtering. And before that, too, in Austria, where they, about several years before. Well, it was, you were living in in 1818, he was living, Gounod, in a Charles X Bourbon Empire. They brought him back after Napoleon. As they often do, they'll bring back the evil.
Mm.
And the Bourbons were really evil. That's why you had the revolution. So this is 1789, and this is 1818. The revolution turned into hell itself. So he's writing because he's stuck in Paris. And he's writing the glory of victory nowadays, for the first time perhaps in the world's history, is won by machinery rather than by men.
Mm.
And disasters will be weighed in the same balance. This is a very important sentence. The Prussians, who are in Paris now for over a year, they will be there for a year. The Prussians have not been braver than we. We have been less fortunate than they. Continues this long letter, and at the end, because you see war is on his mind, O most unhappy earth, wretched home of the human race, where barbarism not only still exists, but is taken for granted for glory and permitted to obscure the pure and beneficent rays of the only true glory in existence, the glory of love, of science. Science today is not where it once was in the prestige game, and of genius.
Hmm.
There's your highest form of anything. 20 of them maybe in history, 40, 70.
Mm-hmm.
And these geniuses have taught us everything we know. Humanity still lingers, yes, it would seem, under the grim shadow of chaos, amid the monstrosities of the Iron Age. And instead of driving their weapons into the earth to benefit their fellow creatures, men plunge them into one another's hearts to decide the ownership of the actual soil. Barbarians, savage they are. He's telling you that we've destroyed the earth too. You see, there's no topsoil left.
But this is in a time before that kind of fear was prevalent. So perhaps we are always on that brink, as I always like to say.
We're always moving forward with the next terrible piece of iron machine.
But the artist still stands.
The only thing important is the genius.
Yes. So hopefully, God willing, we'll be able to converse again about this in a week hence.
The Lord of Men,
Yes.
is Leonardo,
Yes.
had everything.
Mm-hmm.
The God said, this man is beautiful. This man is intelligent beyond all understanding. This man is all things. We're gonna keep him out of the mediocrity area, and he still has. You see, still has that glamour of the most special possibility, calling him the Lord of Men. He has a romantic aura. The life of Gounod was the life of a very romantic man, by the way. And you can tell that. Oh, most unhappy earth, wretched home of the human race. He could be a priest. And it's, by the way, no mistake that he writes oratorio after oratorio, where he says, well, you know, this creepy stuff is not loved by the Parisians as much as the Londoners. And he was always in London giving a new oratorio, because that was where the money is. I think we had a pretty good talk.
I think so too. So I'm looking forward to, however, resuming next week, David.
And you know what it's called?
You mean our program?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. No art, no life.
No art, no life.
Okay.
Please, if you disagree with that, let it churn in you a little. And tell them about what to do if they want to, what is it?
Oh,
Subscribe?
again, we hope that you will subscribe to our burgeoning channel and see us in the coming weeks. Thank
We
you.
mean well, my friends.
Okay.